Lois Youngen. Lois was born in Ragersville, Ohio. She had a tryout with the Fort Wayne Daisies, who signed her to a contract at the age of 17. She entered the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League as a catcher, where she played from 1951 to 1954, including the 1952 season with the Daisies, managed by Hall of Fame slugger Jimmy Fox. At the University of Oregon, Lois coached track and field, tennis, and basketball before Title IX, retiring in 1996 as Director of Physical Activity and Recreational Services after 36 years of service. She is featured in the Women in Baseball permanent display at the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. The All-Americans were celebrated in the film starring Tom Hanks and Gina Davis, A League of Their Own, in 1992. Please welcome into the Tuscarawas County Sports Hall of Fame, Lois Youngen.
It's a little past my bedtime, folks. Plus the fact I'm not used to sitting for 2 hours without stretching and wiggling. So I don't know about you. If you feel like standing, I'm only going to talk about 2 minutes, so maybe you can hang in there. I do want to thank the Tuscarawas County Sports Hall of Fame, and especially Ray Histrick sitting over here from the Ragersville Historical Society for getting me into this position, I do believe. So I grew up in the 1940s, and during that time, a woman's place was at home. But I always knew it was at home first, second, and third. I want to thank the neighborhood boys for allowing me, the only girl around, to play on their team. But there was one catch. They said, all right, Lois, you've got to make a choice. You can either catch or you can play right field. Being smarter than the boys, I became a catcher. Certainly, I'd like to thank my parents for supporting me during this time in all ways. My father, born in Ragersville, Ty Youngen, was a pretty fair pitcher and team captain at what is now Kent State University in the 1920s. My mother, Helen Roll Youngen, was born at Old Town Valley, New Philadelphia area. She went to high school at New Philadelphia and was a member of the girls' high school basketball team. Black, red, enough said. I think she said that was one of her cheers from her school. She lived, excuse me, she lived with me for 22 years in Oregon, and during that time we would often go to brunch on Sunday. And one time at brunch, she announced to the group, I quote, "Well, Lois, you didn't get all your athletic ability from your father." To my relatives, many of whom are here today, in the front, the Rolls, the Youngens, the Speaces, and the Archers. I can't forget the Archers. Thank you for supporting me for all my 88 years. It's been appreciated. Now on to Dr. Alta Weiss. Many people forget she was a medical doctor. A true baseball pioneer. We met once. I was invited. She was retired and living in Ragersville, and I would play catch with my dad down the street. So she invited me as a teenager to her home for lemonade and cookies. And I'll tell you all, she did not bake those cookies. However, I left that day with a signed baseball. What could be any greater for a teenager to have a signed baseball? And next to Penny Marshall, who made the film A League of Their Own. If it had not been for Penny's insistence no one would have ever known that the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League had ever existed. So my hat's off to Penny. She made celebrities of us all. Finally, I'd like to give a shout out to Title IX on its 50th birthday. This federal legislation prohibits gender discrimination in education. And I imagine every girl and young woman here who has ever participated in sports at the high school, college, or even professional level has Title IX to thank. So I wanted to include a little shout out because this is probably the most important legislation that has ever been made available to women to give them an opportunity to compete at the very highest level. So I will leave you with one thought. Remember, there's no crying in baseball.